The candlelight flickered across Sunwoo's face as he watched Robert King lean down toward Mary Johnson. The capo's hand brushed against her bare shoulder. His fingers lingered there for a moment too long. Way too long. "You look pretty today," Robert said with that easy smile. The kind of smile that made men trust him and women forget their boundaries. The kind of smile that hid knives behind it. Mary turned slightly in her chair. Her burgundy velvet dress caught the dim light of the upscale Manhattan restaurant. The deep V-neckline showed just enough skin to be elegant but not desperate. Her statement earrings caught the candlelight as she moved. "Thanks," she said, a simple word, a polite smile, nothing more. But across the pristine white-clothed table, something dangerous shifted in the air. Sunwoo's grip tightened around his whiskey glass. His knuckles went white from the pressure. His jaw locked into a hard line. His eyes turned into something dark, something lethal. The kind of look that made men confess sins they hadn't even committed yet. He brought the glass to his lips and took a slow sip, but his eyes never left Robert King, not for a single second. The tension in his shoulders was visible beneath his perfectly tailored navy pinstripe suit. His black tie was immaculate. His white shirt was crisp. Everything about him screamed control and power. But right now, that control was hanging by a very thin thread. Because Mary Johnson wasn't just any woman sitting at this dinner table. She was his wife. And she had no idea that the man complimenting her was the same man who had been secretly plotting to destroy everything Sunwoo had built for the past 3 years. The restaurant around them buzzed with the quiet conversations of wealthy people. Crystal glasses clinked. Silverware scraped against fine china. The smell of expensive wine and perfectly cooked steak filled the air. This was the kind of place where deals worth millions were made over dessert. The kind of place where the wrong word could start a war. Robert finally straightened up and walked around to his seat across from them. He unbuttoned his gray suit jacket as he sat down. His collar was unbuttoned too, casual, relaxed, like he owned the room. Sunwoo hated everything about him. "Beautiful place you picked," Robert said, gesturing around. "Very classy, very private." "Privacy is important in our line of work," Sunwoo replied. His voice was calm, too calm, the way the ocean is calm before a hurricane. Robert nodded, still smiling. "Couldn't agree more. Speaking of which, I didn't know you were married, Sunwoo. You've been keeping secrets from me." Mary's polite smile stayed frozen on her face. Under the table, her hand found Sunwoo's thigh. A silent question, "What's going on?" "My personal life is not relevant to our business arrangement," Sunwoo said smoothly. "Let's focus on why we're here." But Robert wasn't ready to let it go. He turned his attention to Mary, his eyes traveling over her face like he was memorizing every detail. "So how did you two meet? I'm curious. A man like Sunwoo and a woman like you must be an interesting story." Mary opened her mouth to respond, but Sunwoo cut in. "Another time, perhaps. We have more pressing matters to discuss." Robert raised his hands in mock surrender. Of course, business first, but you can't blame a man for being curious." He winked at Mary. "You really do look stunning tonight. That dress is something else." Sunwoo's glass hit the table a little too hard. The whiskey sloshed against the sides. "Now, before we go any deeper into this story, I need you to do something for me. I pour my heart into these stories, and it genuinely hurts when people watch without subscribing. Please, just take 1 second and subscribe. It's free, and it means the world to me. Also, like the video and drop a comment and tell me the city you are watching from. Don't be a ghost viewer. We are one family here." Now, let's continue. Mary Johnson had grown up in the Bronx with nothing but a single mother, a dream of becoming a lawyer, and the kind of determination that scared people. While other kids were playing outside, she was studying. While other teenagers were going to parties, she was working 2 jobs and maintaining a 4 GPA. By the time she was 27, she had graduated top of her class from Columbia Law School. She landed a job at one of the most prestigious law firms in New York City. The kind of firm that had oil paintings on the walls and fresh flowers in the lobby every single day. the kind of firm that only hired the best of the best. That's where she met Sunwoo. He walked into her firm's office 3 years ago needing legal counsel for his import-export business. That's what he called it anyway. Mary wasn't stupid. She had grown up in neighborhoods where she knew what real import-export businesses looked like, and they didn't come with bodyguards in black suits and custom Italian shoes. She knew what he really was, the head of one of the most powerful Korean crime syndicates operating on the East Coast. His organization controlled shipping routes, real estate, and a network of businesses that stretched from New York to New Jersey to parts of Connecticut. But his case was legitimate enough. His money was clean enough. And something about the way he looked at her made her forget every red flag waving in her face. It started with business meetings that ran too long, then dinners to discuss strategy, then late-night phone calls about nothing in particular. Before Mary knew it, she was in love with a man who could destroy her career and possibly her life. They got married in secret 18 months ago, a courthouse wedding in a small town in upstate New York. No guests, no announcements, no wedding dress, just the two of them and a judge who didn't ask any questions. Because in Sunwoo's world, having a wife meant having a weakness, and weaknesses got people killed. So Mary went back to her life as Mary Johnson, lawyer, and Sunwoo went back to his life as the untouchable boss of the Kang Syndicate. They lived together in a Tribeca penthouse that was registered under a shell company. They loved each other in secret. Until tonight. Tonight was supposed to be a simple business dinner. Sunwoo was meeting with Robert King, a high-ranking capo in the Italian organization that controlled parts of Brooklyn and Staten Island. The two syndicates had been maintaining a fragile peace for years. Occasional business deals, mutual respect of territory lines, no major conflicts. Mary was only there because Sunwoo wanted her close. He always wanted her close these days. Something had been bothering him for weeks. He wouldn't tell her what, but she could see it in the way he checked his phone constantly. The way he made sure she never went anywhere alone. The way he held her at night like someone might try to take her away. Now she understood why. Robert King had recognized her the moment she walked in. She saw it in his eyes. That flash of surprise quickly hidden behind a smooth smile. He knew exactly who she was to Sunwoo. And that compliment, that innocent, "You look pretty today." It wasn't innocent at all. It was the first move in a very dangerous game. The dinner continued with forced politeness. Expensive wine was poured. Plates of food arrived and were barely touched. Robert made small talk about the weather, about real estate prices in Manhattan, about the new restaurant opening in Brooklyn that everyone was talking about. Sunwoo responded in short, clipped sentences. His eyes never warmed. His body never relaxed. Mary could feel the tension radiating off him like heat from a fire. "So," Robert said, leaning back in his chair, "about the shipment coming in next month, my people are concerned about the timeline. We've had some issues with Port Authority lately. Nothing major, but it's slowing things down." Sunwoo nodded slowly. "We've had similar issues. Perhaps we can discuss alternative routes." "Perhaps," Robert swirled his wine glass, "or perhaps we need to discuss alternative arrangements entirely." The temperature in the room dropped about 10 degrees. "What kind of arrangements?" Sunwoo asked. Robert shrugged casually. "The world is changing. Alliances are shifting. The families in Philadelphia are getting restless. The crew in Boston is expanding their territory. Everyone is looking for new partnerships, new opportunities." Mary didn't fully understand the subtext, but she understood enough. Robert was threatening to break the peace, to align with other organizations, to squeeze Sunwoo out. "I wasn't aware you were unhappy with our current arrangement," Sunwoo said. "I'm not unhappy, I'm ambitious." Robert's smile widened. "There's a difference." Indeed there is. The two men stared at each other across the table. Mary felt like she was watching two predators sizing each other up, deciding whether to fight or wait for a better opportunity. "Well," Robert said finally, "we don't need to make any decisions tonight. Let's just enjoy the meal, get to know each other better." He turned to Mary again. "So, Mrs. Johnson, Sunwoo tells me you're a lawyer. Corporate stuff, right?" Mary nodded, keeping her expression neutral. Contract negotiations, mostly. Nothing exciting. I'm sure you're being modest. Robert leaned forward slightly. A woman like you, I bet you're exceptional at everything you do. Under the table, Sunwoo's hand found Mary's thigh. Not a romantic gesture. A warning. Don't engage too much. Don't give him anything to use. I do my best, Mary said simply. Robert studied her face for a long moment. Too long. Like he was searching for something specific, something he expected to find. Have we met before? He asked suddenly. You look familiar somehow. Mary's heart skipped a beat, but her face remained calm. Years of legal training had taught her how to hide her reactions. I don't think so, she said. I would remember. Robert didn't look convinced. Maybe it'll come to me later. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of small talk and veiled threats. By the time the check came, Mary's nerves were completely shot. She just wanted to get out of there. To get away from Robert's knowing looks and Sunwoo's barely contained rage. As they were putting on their coats, Robert leaned in one more time. We should do this again, he said. Maybe next time, Mary can tell me more about her time in Philadelphia. Mary's blood turned to ice. She had never told Sunwoo about Philadelphia, about what happened there, about who she knew there. And the way Robert said it, the way his eyes glittered with malicious satisfaction, he knew everything. Sunwoo's hand tightened on her lower back. She could feel the question in his touch. What is he talking about? I've never been to Philadelphia, Mary said smoothly. The lie came easier than it should have. Robert just smiled. My mistake. Have a lovely evening, you two. He walked out of the restaurant like a man who had already won. And Mary stood there, frozen, knowing that her past had finally caught up to her in the worst possible way. The truth was, Robert King had history with Mary that even Sunwoo didn't know about. 5 years ago, before Mary ever set foot in that law firm, she had dated Robert's younger brother, Vincent King. It happened during her second year of law school. She was working part-time as a bartender in a lounge in the meatpacking district. Vincent came in one night with some friends. He was charming, handsome, a little dangerous in a way that excited her. They dated for 3 months. 3 months of fancy dinners and spontaneous trips and a lifestyle Mary had never experienced before. Vincent never told her what he really did for a living. She assumed he came from money, old money. She didn't ask too many questions. Until the night she saw him break a man's fingers over a gambling debt. Mary left that same night. She changed her phone number. She moved to a different apartment. She threw herself into her studies and never looked back. She never told anyone about Vincent, not her friends, not her mother, and definitely not her new husband. Because some secrets were too dangerous to share. Vincent King died 2 years after Mary left him. A deal gone wrong in some warehouse in Camden, New Jersey. She read about it in the news and felt nothing but relief that she had gotten out when she did. But now Robert was here. Robert, who had always blamed the woman who broke his brother's heart for sending Vincent into a spiral. Robert, who had spent years trying to find her. And when he finally did, she was married to his organization's biggest rival. In Robert's mind, this wasn't a coincidence. This was fate giving him the perfect opportunity for revenge. He was going to destroy Mary, destroy her marriage, destroy Sunwoo, and enjoy every single second of it. The ride back to their penthouse in Tribeca was silent. The kind of heavy, uncomfortable silence that sits between two people who both know something is wrong, but neither wants to be the first to speak. Sunwoo stared out the window of the town car. The lights of Manhattan blurred past. His jaw was tight. His hands were clenched in his lap. Mary sat on the opposite side, her mind racing through every possible scenario. Should she tell him? Should she come clean about Vincent before Robert could poison their relationship with his version of the truth? Or should she stay quiet and hope this all blew over? She knew the answer. She knew what she should do, but the words wouldn't come. Philadelphia, Sunwoo said finally. His voice was calm, too calm, the way he sounded before giving orders that ruined people's lives. What happened in Philadelphia, Mary? She closed her eyes, took a deep breath. She knew this moment would come eventually. She just didn't expect it to come like this. "It was before I knew you," she said carefully. "Before law school, actually. I dated someone. It ended badly." Sunwoo turned to look at her. His dark eyes searched her face like he was looking for the lie. "Someone with connections to Robert King." It wasn't a question. "His brother," Mary admitted. "Vincent. I didn't know who his family was until I was already in too deep. When I found out the truth about what he did, about who he really was, I left. I ran. That's the whole story." Sunwoo was quiet for a long moment. The car stopped at a red light. The engine hummed softly. Outside, a group of young people laughed as they crossed the street, completely oblivious to the tension inside the black town car. "Why didn't you tell me?" Sunwoo asked. "Because I was ashamed." Mary's voice cracked slightly. She hated how vulnerable she sounded. "Because I spent years trying to forget that part of my life. Because by the time I realized who you really were, I was already in love with you, and I didn't want my past to ruin what we had. You thought I would judge you for dating the wrong man when you were young. I thought you would see me differently. I thought you would look at me and see someone who could be used against you, a liability instead of a partner." Sunwoo moved across the car. He sat next to her, so close she could feel the heat of his body. He cupped her face in his hands. His grip was firm but not rough, demanding but not cruel. "That man touched your shoulder tonight," he said quietly. "He called you pretty. He looked at you like he had the right to look at you that way, like you belonged to him." Mary's breath caught in her throat. She had seen Sunwoo's intensity before. She had seen his darkness, but never directed at a situation involving her. "No one has the right to look at you that way," Sunwoo continued. "Not him, not anyone. You are mine. You have been mine since the day you agreed to marry me." "I know," Mary whispered. "I've been yours since the day I married you. I never stopped being yours." Sunwoo's thumb traced her bottom lip slowly. His eyes darkened with something that was part possessiveness, part desire, part fear. Fear of losing her, fear of what Robert might do. "Then help me destroy him," he said, "before he destroys us." Mary nodded. She would do whatever it took to protect what they had built together, even if it meant facing the ghosts of her past head-on. The next morning, Mary was getting ready for work when her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She picked it up casually, expecting spam or a wrong number. The message made her blood run cold. "I know what you did to my brother. I have proof that you were with him when he died. Either you leave Sunwoo and disappear, or I show him everything." Mary's hands trembled so badly, she almost dropped the phone. She wasn't with Vincent when he died. She hadn't spoken to him in over a year before his death. She was in New York, interviewing for law school, 300 miles away from that warehouse in Camden. Someone had manufactured evidence against her. Fake texts, fake photos, fake GPS data, something that would make it look like she was involved in Vincent's death. And if Sunwoo saw it, no amount of love would save her from his wrath. In his world, some sins were unforgivable. Being connected to the death of a made man's brother was one of them. Robert King wasn't just trying to break up her marriage. He was trying to get her killed. Mary did something she never thought she would do. She reached out to her old contacts from law school. Specifically, her former roommate Priya Patel, who now worked as a forensic accountant for the FBI in Washington, D.C. They had lost touch over the years. Different cities, different lives, different worlds. But Priya was the smartest person Mary had ever known when it came to following money trails and uncovering digital fingerprints. She was also the only person Mary trusted enough to ask for help. They met in secret at a coffee shop in Georgetown. Mary drove down from New York, making sure she wasn't followed. She wore a baseball cap and kept her sunglasses on even indoors. Paranoid behavior, maybe, but these days, paranoid felt like smart. Priya looked exactly the same as she had in law school. Short hair, sharp eyes, a perpetual expression of mild skepticism. She raised an eyebrow when Mary slid into the booth across from her. "Well," Priya said, "you look like you haven't slept in 3 days. Want to tell me what's going on?" Mary didn't waste time with small talk. "Someone is trying to frame me for being present at a crime scene 5 years ago. I wasn't there. I was in New York, interviewing for Columbia. But whoever is doing this has created digital evidence. Texts that never happened. GPS data that's completely fake. Financial records that tie me to events I had nothing to do with." Priya's skeptical expression sharpened into something more serious. That level of fabrication requires serious resources. We're talking about someone with access to hackers, data manipulation experts, and inside connections to law enforcement databases. This isn't some amateur job. "I know. Can you tell me who's behind it?" Mary hesitated. She didn't want to drag Priya into this world, but she also couldn't do this alone. "His name is Robert King. He's a high-ranking member of an organized crime family based in Brooklyn." Priya whistled softly. "You really know how to pick your enemies, don't you?" "It wasn't by choice, trust me." "What exactly is your connection to him?" Mary took a deep breath. "I dated his brother 5 years ago. The brother died in some kind of deal gone wrong. Robert blames me for it, says I broke his brother's heart and sent him spiraling. He's been looking for me ever since, and now he's found me. And he's fabricating evidence to make it look like you were involved in the death." "Yes." Priya leaned back in her chair. "What do you want me to do?" "Trace it. Find out where the fake evidence is coming from. Figure out who created it and how. If I can prove it's fabricated, I can protect myself." "From Robert King." Mary met her friend's eyes. "From everyone." Priya was quiet for a long moment. Mary could practically see the calculations happening behind her eyes, the risks being weighed, the possible consequences being considered. "I can try," Priya said finally. "But Mary, if this is who I think it is, you're dealing with people who make problems disappear. Permanently. You need to be very, very careful." "I know." "Do you? Because this isn't some corporate dispute where the worst-case scenario is losing your job. This is life and death stuff. These people don't play games." Mary thought about Sunwoo, about the danger she had willingly married into, about the darkness she had accepted because she loved the man who carried it. "I know," she said again, "but I don't have a choice. If I don't fight back, I lose everything." Meanwhile, back in New York, Sunwoo had his own people investigating Robert King. His right-hand man, a sharp-eyed Korean American named Derek Yoon, brought him troubling news. They met in Sunwoo's office on the top floor of a building in Midtown. The room was all glass and steel and modern furniture, a far cry from the traditional spaces that older bosses preferred. Sunwoo believed in moving with the times. "Robert's been meeting with our distributors in Newark," Derek reported. He was standing on the other side of Sunwoo's desk, hands clasped behind his back like a soldier giving a briefing. "He's offering them better terms to switch allegiances, 20% higher cuts, guaranteed protection, the works." Sunwoo's expression remained neutral, but his fingers tapped slowly on the desk, a sign of controlled anger that Derek recognized all too well. "That's a violation of our agreement," Sunwoo said. "Yes, sir, it is." "What else?" Derek hesitated for a fraction of a second. "He's been asking questions about Mary, her background, her family, where she went to school, where she worked before joining your legal team." Sunwoo's tapping stopped. His hand went very still. "He's not trying to make a business move," Sunwoo said quietly. "He's trying to get to me through her." "That's my assessment as well, sir." Sunwoo stood and walked to the window. The Manhattan skyline stretched out before him. Thousands of buildings, millions of people, and somewhere out there a man was trying to destroy his marriage. "Have our men watch him," Sunwoo ordered. "Every meeting, every conversation, every phone call. I want to know what he's planning before he even finishes thinking it." "Yes, sir, and Mary." Sunwoo turned back to face Derek. "She doesn't need to know the extent of the threat yet. I'll protect her my own way." "With respect, sir, if she's in danger, she should know." "She will know when the time is right. For now, I want her focused on her normal life. If she starts looking over her shoulder constantly, she'll make mistakes. She'll become a target. Derek nodded, but there was something in his eyes that suggested he didn't entirely agree. Sunwoo noticed. He always noticed. You have something to say. Only that in my experience, secrets between spouses rarely end well, even when the intentions are good. Sunwoo considered this. Derek was right, of course, but Sunwoo had spent his whole life controlling information, deciding who knew what and when. It was second nature to him. Noted, he said finally, but my decision stands for now. That night, Mary came home to find Sunwoo sitting in the dark living room of their penthouse. No lights on, no television, just him sitting on the leather couch with a tablet glowing in his hands. His face was lit by the blue-white screen. His expression was unreadable. Sunwoo, Mary set down her bag slowly. What's wrong? Someone sent this to me an hour ago, he said flatly. He turned the tablet around so she could see the screen. On it were photos of Mary with Vincent King, time stamps from the night Vincent died, a text conversation that showed Mary asking Vincent to meet her at the warehouse, another text where she confirmed she was already there waiting for him. It was all fake, every single bit of it, but it looked real, horribly, convincingly real. This isn't real, Mary said immediately. Her voice was shaking despite her best efforts to stay calm. Sunwoo, I swear to you, this is not real. Someone created this to. To what? Sunwoo stood. He was taller than her by several inches. In the darkness, his presence felt overwhelming, dangerous. To make me doubt my wife, to make me question whether everything between us has been a lie. Yes, exactly that. Robert is trying to tear us apart. He wants to destroy our marriage because he blames me for his brother's death. And did you have anything to do with his brother's death? No, tears were streaming down Mary's face now. She couldn't stop them. I left Vincent a year before he died. I was in New York the night he was killed. I can prove it. There have to be records somewhere. Sunwoo stared at her for a long, terrible moment. His eyes were searching, calculating, weighing the evidence against the woman he loved. Mary's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. This was the moment where her marriage either survived or shattered into a million pieces. Then Sunwoo did something that surprised her. He pulled her into his arms and held her tight. His chin rested on top of her head. His arms wrapped around her like he was trying to absorb her into himself. I know, he whispered into her hair. I know it's fake. Mary sagged with relief. Her knees actually buckled. If Sunwoo hadn't been holding her, she would have collapsed. You believe me? I believe evidence, real evidence. He pulled back to look at her face. My people traced the digital fingerprints on those files. They were created 3 days ago by a tech company that Robert King has used before for other purposes. The GPS data was fabricated. The text messages were generated using software. You were at a coffee shop in Brooklyn the night Vincent King died, 300 miles from Philadelphia. I have the credit card receipts to prove it. Mary's relief was so overwhelming she started crying harder. Why didn't you just tell me that? Why did you let me think? Because I needed to see your reaction. I needed to know that when you defended yourself, you believed what you were saying. And you did, every word. Mary hit his chest weakly. That's cruel. That's survival. In my world, trust has to be tested. He wiped the tears from her cheeks with gentle thumbs. But Robert doesn't know we figured it out. He doesn't know his plan failed before it even started. And that gives us an advantage. Mary's phone rang before she could respond. Sunwoo's phone rang at the same moment. They looked at each other, then at their screens. Both calls were from unknown numbers. Sunwoo answered his. His expression went from calm to deadly in the span of 2 seconds. When? He asked. Then how many? Then, don't move, I'm coming. He hung up and grabbed his jacket. What happened? Mary asked. Robert just made a move. He hit one of our warehouses in Jersey City, and he took something. What? Sunwoo's jaw tightened. Not something, someone, your friend Priya, the one you met in Washington. He knows she was helping you trace the fake evidence, and now he's using her as leverage. Mary's blood ran cold. She had put Priya in danger. She had dragged her innocent friend into this nightmare. You have to stay here, Sunwoo cut her off. I'll handle this. She's my friend. She's in this situation because of me. Which is exactly why you can't be involved in the rescue. Robert wants to get to you. He wants you to do something stupid out of guilt and emotion. That's his play. Mary wanted to argue. She wanted to fight. But she could see the logic in what Sunwoo was saying. And she could also see that he wasn't going to change his mind. Bring her back, Mary said. Please, she has nothing to do with our world. She's just an accountant. I'll bring her back, Sunwoo promised. And then Robert King is going to learn what happens when you touch people I care about. Robert King's message was clear. Back off, or the FBI accountant dies. But Sunwoo didn't get to where he was by backing off. And Mary wasn't the kind of woman who abandoned her friends, no matter how dangerous the situation. For 3 days they planned, strategized, gathered intelligence. Derek Yoon worked around the clock, reaching out to contacts inside Robert's organization. Sunwoo met with other power players in the city, making sure they understood that Robert had violated the terms of their peace agreement. He was building a case against the Capo, not a legal case, a case in the court of organized crime opinion. Mary threw herself into research. She dug up everything she could find about Robert's operations, his businesses, his weaknesses, the people who worked for him who might be dissatisfied, the enemies he had made over the years who might be willing to help bring him down. And she found something interesting. There was a captain in Robert's organization named Tony Marchetti. He had been with the family for over 20 years. Loyal, trusted. But in the last 3 years, he had been passed over for promotion twice in favor of younger, flashier guys who were friends with Robert. Tony Marchetti was 62 years old. He had put in decades of work for the organization, and he was watching upstarts half his age get the rewards that should have been his. If anyone in Robert's world was ready to flip, it was Tony. Mary presented her findings to Sunwoo on the 3rd night. Approaching him is risky, Sunwoo said, studying the file she had compiled. If he's still loyal to Robert, he'll report the approach, and then we've tipped our hand. It's worth the risk, Mary argued. Everyone I talk to says Tony is old school. He believes in honor, in doing things the right way. Robert's obsession with destroying us for personal reasons goes against everything Tony values. If we frame it correctly, he might listen. Sunwoo considered this. You're remarkably good at this, you know. At what? At finding the weakness in an enemy's armor, at understanding what motivates people. He smiled slightly. You would have made a terrifying criminal. I'll take that as a compliment. It is. Sunwoo assigned Derek to make the initial approach to Tony Marchetti. They met at a bar in Staten Island on neutral ground. Derek laid out the situation carefully. Robert's unauthorized vendetta, the kidnapping of an FBI employee, the risks that Robert's behavior was creating for everyone in both organizations. Tony listened without speaking. When Derek was finished, the old captain sat in silence for a long moment. What do you want from me? Tony asked finally. Information, Robert's schedule, his security arrangements, where he's keeping the woman. Derek paused. And when the time comes, we want you to stand aside. Don't protect him, don't warn him, just let it happen. And in return, Sunwoo will remember the favor. When the dust settles, there will be opportunities for a man like you, a man who understands loyalty and discretion. Tony finished his drink, set the glass down carefully, looked Derek straight in the eyes. Robert King is an arrogant fool, Tony said. He's going to get us all killed over a grudge about a woman his brother dated 5 years ago. It's embarrassing. Derek waited. I'll give you what you need, Tony continued. But I want your word that this ends with Robert, not with a war, not with collateral damage, just him. You have my word. Good, then let's talk about how to get your accountant back. While Derek was negotiating with Tony, Mary had made a decision of her own. She was going to help rescue Priya, not from the sidelines, not from the safety of the penthouse. She was going to be there. She knew Sunwoo would never agree, so she didn't ask permission. Instead, she reached out to Robert King directly, sent a message through channels that she knew would get to him, told him she was willing to meet, willing to negotiate, willing to leave Sunwoo if that's what it took to save her friend. It was a trap, of course. She knew Robert wouldn't actually let Priya go, even if Mary showed up. But if she could get inside his operation, get close to where Priya was being held, she could provide valuable information to Sunwoo's team. She could be useful. She could matter. She could do something other than wait and worry. Robert agreed to meet. The night before the scheduled meeting, Sunwoo found out what Mary was planning. Derek's people had intercepted her communications. The fight that followed was the biggest of their entire marriage. Absolutely not. Sunwoo's voice shook the walls of the penthouse. Mary had never seen him lose control like this. You are not walking into a trap. You are not offering yourself up to a man who wants to hurt you. I'm not offering myself up. I'm creating an opportunity, Mary shot back. Robert wants me there because he thinks it gives him leverage. But if your team is in position, my presence is actually an advantage. It's a distraction. He'll be focused on me instead of watching for an attack. He's focused on you because he wants to destroy you. Don't you understand? This isn't business for him. This is personal. He hates you. He blames you for his brother's death. If he gets his hands on you, I don't know what he'll do. Then don't let him get his hands on me. Have your people there. Use the information Tony gave you. Make a plan that keeps everyone safe. The plan that keeps everyone safe is the plan where you stay here and let professionals handle it. Priya is there because of me, Sunwoo. She's tied up in some warehouse, terrified out of her mind because she agreed to help me. I can't just sit here and do nothing. Sunwoo grabbed her shoulders. His grip was tight, almost painful. His eyes were wild with fear and frustration. I can't lose you, he said. His voice cracked. Do you understand? You are the only person in my entire life who has loved me without wanting something in return. You are the only person I trust completely. If something happens to you, I will burn this entire city to the ground. I will become something you would not recognize. I will become a monster. Mary stared at him. The raw honesty in his words cut through her anger. Then help me do this safely, she said softly. Don't lock me away like some princess in a tower. I'm your partner. Let me be your partner. Sunwoo's grip loosened. He pulled her close, pressed his forehead against hers. You'll wear an earpiece at all times, he said finally. You'll have a tracker on you. You'll check in every 30 minutes. And the moment I say abort, you get out. Non-negotiable. Mary nodded. Deal. If anything happens to you, I will never forgive myself. Nothing is going to happen to me, not with you watching. Mary met Robert at a neutral location, a restaurant in Midtown owned by neither syndicate, the kind of place that catered to politicians and executives, the kind of place where violence would be unthinkable. At least on the surface. She walked in alone, wearing a simple black dress and no jewelry, nothing that could be used against her. Nothing that screamed wealthy target. She looked like any other professional woman meeting someone for a business lunch. Robert was already seated at a table near the back. He stood when she approached, smiled that easy smile that made her skin crawl. Mary, so glad you could make it. Please sit. She sat across from him, keeping her expression neutral. In her ear, she could hear Sunwoo's voice, steady, calm, reminding her that she wasn't alone. Where is Priya? Mary asked. Safe, for now. Robert waved a waiter over and ordered wine for both of them without asking what she wanted. A power move, a reminder of who was in control. Let's not rush straight to the unpleasant business. We have so much to catch up on. We don't have anything to catch up on. I barely knew your brother. We dated for 3 months. That was 5 years ago. 3 months was long enough for him to fall in love with you. Robert's smile faded slightly. He talked about you constantly, you know, even after you left, even after you changed your number and disappeared like he was nothing. I left because I found out he was involved in organized crime. I didn't want that life. Can you really blame me? Yes, Robert's eyes hardened. I can. He was trying to get out, you know. He was going to leave the family, start over, marry you, build a normal life. But when you left, he fell apart, started making stupid decisions, taking unnecessary risks. And then he ended up dead in that warehouse. That's not my fault, Mary said firmly. I'm not responsible for his choices. Maybe not, but you're responsible for breaking him. And in my world, that demands a price. Mary leaned forward slightly. What do you want, Robert? Really? You've already tried to frame me for being at the scene of his death. Your fake evidence fell apart in hours. You've kidnapped an innocent woman who has nothing to do with any of this. What's the end game here? Robert studied her for a long moment. I want you to suffer, the way I've suffered, the way Vincent suffered. And Sunwoo, what about him? Sunwoo is a bonus. Destroying his marriage, taking his wife, watching him fall apart. It's poetic, really. Mary felt Sunwoo's voice in her ear. Keep him talking. We're almost in position. She forced herself to stay calm. So what happens now? I leave Sunwoo and you let Priya go. Something like that. But I need more than your word that you'll stay away from him. I need insurance. Proof that you're serious. What kind of insurance? Robert reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. You're going to call Sunwoo right now. Tell him you're leaving him. Tell him you never loved him. Tell him the whole marriage was a long con to get access to his money and power. I want to hear his heart break. Mary's stomach turned. And if I refuse? Then your friend Priya has a very unpleasant evening ahead of her. Sunwoo's voice was tight in her ear. Don't do it. We're 2 minutes out. Stall him. Mary picked up the phone. Her hands were steady despite the terror churning inside her. She looked Robert in the eyes as she dialed. And then, just as the line connected, she said something Robert wasn't expecting. The Italian captains know what you've been doing, Robert. Tony Marchetti told them everything. About the fake evidence. About the unsanctioned vendetta. About how you've been putting personal revenge ahead of business. Robert's face went white. By tomorrow, you won't have a single ally left in your organization. Every decision you've made, every rule you've broken, every risk you've taken. It's all going to come crashing down on your head. The phone in her hand buzzed. A text from Sunwoo. We're in. Get out now. Mary stood. Good luck, Robert. You're going to need it. She walked out of the restaurant without looking back. 3 blocks away, a team of Sunwoo's men was already breaching the warehouse where Priya was being held. Tony Marchetti had given them the exact location, the number of guards, the security codes. It was almost too easy. Priya was found tied to a chair in a back office, scared but unharmed. The guards, already informed by Marchetti that Robert had lost the support of the organization, didn't even put up a fight. By midnight, Priya was safe in the penthouse with Mary. Robert King was on the run, abandoned by his own people, facing judgment from the very organization he had served his whole life. But the story wasn't over yet. Because during the chaos of the rescue, Sunwoo's people discovered something unexpected, something that changed everything. Inside Robert's files, there was evidence of a mole inside Sunwoo's organization. Someone who had been feeding information to Robert for months. Someone Sunwoo trusted completely. His own cousin, James Kang. The revelation about James hit Sunwoo like a physical blow. James had been with him since the beginning. They grew up together in Los Angeles, in the same neighborhood with the same grandmother. When Sunwoo's parents died in what he was told was a car accident, James's family took him in, raised him like a son, gave him a home when he had nothing. James was the only family Sunwoo had left, the only person he had trusted before Mary came into his life. And now he was a traitor. Derek brought James in the next morning. No force, no violence, just a quiet request to come to Sunwoo's office for a conversation. James came willingly, which somehow made everything worse. Sunwoo dismissed everyone else from the room. This was a family matter. It needed to stay that way. Why? Sunwoo asked. Just one word, but it carried the weight of 20 years of history. James couldn't meet his cousin's eyes. He stared at the floor, at the window, at anything other than Sunwoo's face. "Because I was tired," James said finally. "Tired of being second place. Tired of doing all the dirty work while you got all the glory. Tired of watching you build this empire while I stayed in the shadows. I gave you everything: money, position, respect. What more did you want? I wanted to be the one in charge for once. I wanted people to look at me the way they look at you." James's voice rose with emotion. "You don't even see it, do you? All those years you were the handsome one, the smart one, the one everyone admired. I was just James, Sunwoo's cousin, Sunwoo's helper, Sunwoo's shadow. So you sold me out to Robert King because you were jealous. Because I was desperate. He offered me something you never did, a territory of my own, something that would actually be mine, a chance to be someone other than your sidekick." Sunwoo's jaw tightened. Every instinct told him to handle this the way such matters were traditionally handled. Permanently, definitively, in a way that would send a message to anyone else who might be thinking about betrayal. But then Mary stepped into the room. She had been listening outside the door. She walked in and stood beside Sunwoo, her presence a silent reminder of everything he had become since meeting her. "James," Mary said softly, "I know you feel overlooked. I know what it's like to work twice as hard and get half the recognition. I grew up in the Bronx with nothing. I had to fight for every opportunity. Every success felt like it came with asterisks." James finally looked up at her. His eyes were wet. "But Robert was using you," Mary continued. "He didn't care about your dreams or your potential. He cared about what you could give him. The moment you stopped being useful, he would have disposed of you." "How do you know that?" "Because that's what he does. His own brother died because Robert sent him on a job he wasn't ready for. Robert has spent years blaming me for that death, but the truth is, he got his own brother killed. He just needed a scapegoat to ease his guilt. First it was me, now it's you." James's face crumpled. The weight of his choices crashed down on him. The realization that he had been manipulated by a man who didn't care about him at all. "What do I do?" he asked, looking at Sunwoo. "I've already told him so much. I can't undo what I've done. I can't take back the information I gave him." Sunwoo was silent for a long moment. Every muscle in his body was tense. He was fighting against years of training, years of living by a code that demanded certain responses to certain crimes. Mary's hand found his, a gentle touch, a silent plea. "You can help us clean up the mess," Sunwoo said finally. His voice was cold, but he wasn't reaching for the gun that Mary knew he carried. "You can give us everything you gave Robert, every piece of information, every secret, every vulnerability. Done, anything. And then you're going to disappear. Leave the country. Start over somewhere I will never have to see your face again. You will not contact anyone from this organization. You will not speak my name or Mary's name. You will become no one." James nodded frantically. "Yes, whatever you want, I'll go. I'll disappear." "One more thing." Sunwoo stepped closer to his cousin, close enough that James had to look up at him. "If you ever return, if I ever hear that you've been talking to anyone about our family, our business, or anything connected to us, I will find you, and there won't be a second conversation." James understood. He understood completely. "Thank you," he whispered. "I don't deserve." "You're right, you don't. Now get out of my sight." Priya stayed with them for 2 weeks while she recovered from the ordeal. Physically, she was fine. Emotionally, she was shaken in ways that would take time to heal. Mary took care of her friend, made sure she ate, made sure she talked to a therapist, made sure she knew that none of what happened was her fault. "You married a mafia boss," Priya said one night, shaking her head in disbelief. They were sitting on the balcony of the penthouse, looking out at the city lights. "I always knew you were wild, but this is next level." Mary laughed softly. "I prefer the term ambitious businessman with unconventional methods." "Girl, please," Priya grinned. "But I get it. The way he looks at you. That man would burn the world down if you asked him to." "I would never ask." "I know. That's why he loves you. You make him want to be better than he is." Mary thought about that for a long moment. It was true, in a way. She had changed Sunwoo just as he had changed her. They had made each other stronger, made each other braver, made each other into people neither of them had expected to become. "When are you going back to Washington?" Mary asked. "Next week. My boss has been surprisingly understanding about the whole kidnapped by organized crime situation. Apparently it's not the first time someone from the Bureau has had a complicated personal connection." "Will you be okay?" Priya took a deep breath. "I will be, eventually, but I'm definitely going to need more therapy than my insurance covers." "I'll pay for it, whatever you need." "Mary, you don't have to." "I want to. You were there because of me. The least I can do is make sure you're okay." Priya reached over and squeezed her hand. "You've changed, you know. The Mary I knew in law school was ambitious and driven, but she was also scared. Scared of taking risks. Scared of letting people get too close. Now you're married to one of the most dangerous men on the East Coast and facing down mob bosses like it's just another Tuesday." "I had to change. The old Mary couldn't survive in this world." "No, but she also couldn't have found this kind of love, so maybe it's worth it." Mary looked back out at the city. The millions of lights, the millions of lives, the world that had become her home in ways she never expected. "It's worth it," she said quietly, "every single day." Later that night, Sunwoo found Mary standing by the bedroom window. He came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, rested his chin on her shoulder. They stood like that for a long time, just breathing together. "Robert has been handled," Sunwoo said finally. "Tony Marchetti took over his position. Robert was given a choice, exile or face judgment from the council. He chose exile. He's somewhere in South America now, running from his own shadow." "Is it really over?" "For now, in this business nothing is ever completely over, but we've bought ourselves time, peace, room to breathe." Mary turned in his arms to face him. "What about James?" "He left yesterday. I don't know where he went. I made it clear that I don't want to know." "Are you okay?" Sunwoo's expression was hard to read. Grief and anger, and something that might have been relief all mixed together. "I will be," he said. "Having you here helps, having someone I can trust completely, someone who sees me as more than what I do for a living." Mary reached up and touched his face. "I see you, Sunwoo, all of you, the darkness and the light, the danger and the tenderness, and I love every part of it." He kissed her then, deep and slow and full of promise. "I want to do this right," he said when they finally broke apart. "No more secrets, no more hidden marriage. I want the world to know that you are my wife, my partner, my equal." "That's dangerous. People will try to use me against you." "Let them try." His arms tightened around her. "I'm done hiding the best thing that ever happened to me." 6 months later, Sunwoo and Mary had a real wedding. Not a courthouse, not a secret. A full celebration with 300 guests at a stunning venue in the Hamptons, overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. Mary wore a breathtaking white gown that made her look like a queen. Sunwoo waited at the altar in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, watching her walk down the aisle with the kind of expression that made every woman in the audience wish someone would look at her that way. Priya was the maid of honor. Derek Yoon was the best man. Even Tony Marchetti was there as a guest, representing the new, more stable relationship between the two organizations. The ceremony was beautiful. Simple vows that meant everything. Promises made in front of God and family and friends. A kiss that sealed a bond that had already survived more tests than most marriages face in a lifetime. "Ladies and gentlemen," the officiant announced, "I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Kang." The crowd erupted in applause. Sunwoo lifted Mary's hand to his lips and kissed it, never breaking eye contact. "I love you," he whispered, soft enough that only she could hear. "I love you too," she whispered back, "always." The reception was a blur of laughter and music and dancing. Mary's mother, who had finally been let in on the truth about her daughter's life, was there with tears of joy streaming down her face. Sunwoo's grandmother had flown in from Korea, a tiny woman with sharp eyes who had pulled Mary aside and said, "You are good for my grandson. He was cold before. You made him warm." As the night wound down, Sunwoo and Mary slipped away from the celebration. They stood on a balcony overlooking the ocean, the sound of waves mixing with the distant music. "Happy?" Sunwoo asked. "More than I ever thought possible," Mary replied. "You." "I didn't know what happiness felt like until I met you. I thought power was enough. I thought control was enough. But you showed me that there's more to life than surviving. There's living, really living." Mary leaned into him. "What happens now?" "Now we build something together, something better than what came before. I've already started moving the organization in new directions, more legitimate business, less risk, less violence. It will take time, but I want to build something our children can inherit without shame." Mary's heart skipped. "Children." Sunwoo smiled, a real smile, the kind that transformed his usually serious face into something beautiful. "If you want them, when you're ready, I'm not going anywhere." Mary thought about everything they had been through, the secrets, the danger, the betrayals, the love that had survived it all. "I want that," she said softly. "I want everything with you." Sunwoo kissed her forehead. "Then that's what we'll have." 1 year later, Mary stood in the nursery of their new home in Connecticut, a house with a yard and trees and room to grow. A house far enough from the city to feel safe, but close enough that Sunwoo could still manage his business. In her arms was a baby girl, 3 weeks old, perfect in every way. Sunwoo came up behind her, wrapping his arms around both of them. He looked at his daughter with an expression of wonder that Mary had never seen on his face before. "We did good," he said. "We did amazing," Mary corrected. "She's beautiful." "She looks like you." "She has your eyes." Sunwoo pressed a kiss to his daughter's tiny forehead, then to Mary's temple. "I never thought I could have this," he admitted. "A family, a home, peace. I spent so many years preparing for war that I forgot to imagine what victory might look like." Mary turned in his arms. "This is victory, this right here, everything we built, everyone we love, the fact that we survived and came out stronger. You made this possible. You came into my life and changed everything. We changed each other. That's what love does." They stood together in the nursery, a family of 3, watching the sun rise over their new beginning. And somewhere, far away, Robert King sat alone in a dingy apartment in a country where he didn't speak the language, stripped of power and respect, and everything he had once taken for granted. He thought about Mary Johnson every single day, about how he had underestimated her, about how a woman he dismissed as just a pretty face had helped bring down everything he had built. He would never recover from what happened. He would spend the rest of his life running from shadows, knowing that he had lost not because of bullets or violence, but because of love, because of loyalty, because of a bond between a woman from the Bronx and a Korean Mafia boss that had proven stronger than all his schemes and all his hatred. Mary Johnson had walked into the world of kings and monsters, and she had come out wearing the crown. If this story kept you watching until the very end, you already know what to do. Hit that subscribe button right now if you haven't already. Drop a comment telling me what you thought about Sunwoo and Mary. Were they your new favorite couple? Did you see that betrayal coming? I want to hear from you. Share this with someone who loves a good love story with a little danger mixed in, and I'll see you in the next one.